This table from 1976 was sold for $9.9 million in 2024. But it's just a table with some elegant art and decades of history. Well, only 5 decades though. Yet how in the world is this 50-year-old table so expensive and so popular? We live in the age of the upgrade. Every year brings newer phones, faster apps, cleaner design, and more efficient everything. But somehow, right in the middle of all that progress, we find ourselves pulled back, not just once in a while, but constantly. Collecting antique isn't just a modern thing, it's always been a hobby of civilizations and empires around the world. Why are we drawn to things that are outdated, worn, or even broken? Our love for old things reveals something honest about memory, emotion, identity, and value. So let's unpack that. Well, the first obvious answer is nostalgia. But it's not just a craving for childhood. Nostalgia is powerful because it reconnects us, not just to a time, but also to a feeling. When you hear a song you used to play on a scratch CD or touch a toy you once held every day, your brain doesn't just remember, it relives. And in a fast-paced world that often feels disconnected, those emotional flashbacks from your childhood memories become comforting anchors. Psychologists say nostalgia can boost mood, help you cope with stress, and make you feel more secure in your identity. So when people buy a vintage hoodie or an old video game, they're not being irrational. They're reaching for a version of themselves that felt whole and real. We live in a time where almost everything is made to look perfect. Smooth surfaces, sharp edges, clean aesthetics, but perfect's cold, and old things aren't. There's this philosophy in Japanese culture called wabi-sabi, which celebrates beauty and imperfection and the natural aging of things. And the truth is, a cracked bowl can sometimes say more about the passage of time than a brand new one ever could. We're drawn to things with character, not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. It reminds us that imperfection is part of the story, and maybe deep down we trust what's been around a while more than just what showed up. So much of modern lives lives on screen. Our photos are in our phone, on the cloud, our conversations happens in DMs, and our music flows through wireless speakers. It's very convenient, sure, but it's also untouchable. Old things gives memory a physical form. A record isn't just a way to hear music. It's like a ritual. You're part of the experience, not just a listener. In a time where almost everything is virtual, old objects remind us that we're still physical beings in a physical world, and they're things we can touch because they're also physical beings in a physical world. And that not all memories should be pixelated. And then there's the business of it all, because make no mistake, the past is very profitable, even in the present. The global antiques and collectible market is worth over 50 billion, and it's not being driven by old collectors in dusty attics. It's young people, Gen Z and millennials who are leading the charge. They're thrifting vintage clothing, flipping furniture. On platforms like eBay, Etsy, and even TikTok, the resale of old stuff is thriving, and big brands are taking notice. Levi's has its own vintage shop, and Nike keeps re-releasing old sneaker designs such as Air Jordans. But why? Because these things feel rare, honest, and lasting in a world that often feels fake and temporary. According to a 2022 Statista survey, 35% of Americans aged 35 to 54 said they collected items, and antiques were one of the top categories. Google Trends show a steady interest in the word antiques over the past 20 years, with seasonal peaks near holidays and spring, such as cleaning and renovation time. Terms like vintage decor and antique furniture have seen double-digit growth in search volume year over year since 2019. The history of antiques dates back to civilizations like the Greeks, Egyptians, and the Romans, who collected artifacts from past eras, often for religious, aesthetic, or status-related reasons. The Renaissance saw a renewed interest in classical art and culture, leading to the collection of antiques. The 18th century saw the rise of the Grand Tour, where wealthy Europeans traveled to see art and antiques around Europe. And then the 19th century witnessed the flourishing of antiques trade in major cities, majorly fueled by the expansion of the British Empire and increased interest in historical objects. So altogether, the ancient civilizations started this interest, and as the Renaissance looked back at the concepts and knowledges of the ancient civilization, they were also inspired by their classical art and started the lost art of collecting antiques. This was made possible by the expansion of empires and sea trading. Then the 20th century saw the professionalization of the antiques trade, with the establishment of associations, and the trend of collecting antiques continues today. There's also something deeply human about keeping things that last. A family photo, a watch passed down, these are objects we protect, and it's not because they're worth a lot, but because they carry meaning. In a disposable culture, old things remind us that something should be held onto, that memory isn't always in the mind. It can also live in our hands, in our homes, in the things we choose not to throw away. And they're proof that stories outlive trends, that love can be attached to a thing, and that the concept that what lives and what survives matters because they tell stories about us. We like old things not just because they're old, but because they've made it. They've lasted, they've been loved, and that they remind us that time adds value, not just wear. Collecting antique isn't just a modern thing, it's always been a hobby of civilizations and the empires of the past. In a culture that forgets the past, old things help us remind and remember what matters. They slow us down, reconnect us, and make the present feel a little less rushed. Sometimes looking back is the best way to stay grounded as we move forward. So what do you think? Do you like collecting antiques like me? Do you like collecting old stuff? Well, drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on the no-brainer for science, history, and philosophy. Check out our Instagram and X for more content, and we'll see you next time.